This is Six Tackles with Gus, with Matthew Thompson and Gus Gould.
Welcome to Six Tackles for another week. Hope you are having a fantastic week. Goodness, there's some rugby league news around. Jason Demetriou is sacked. We'll have the inside story on a day of drama for South Sydney, the fallout of the decision to axe the coach, and Gus will run his eye over the candidates. There's one looming large in particular. The Roosters set to farewell a grand final champ, a Clive Churchill medalist, Luke Keary, to retire at the end of the season. If a club develops a player, why shouldn't they get a salary cap discount? I'll ask Gus that, plus your questions, and we'll preview a bumper round 9. There is so much around. Welcome, Gus.
Matthew Thompson, how you doing?
Fabulous. You well?
I'm well, thank you.
You look well.
Never seen the sun shining so brightly.
That's exactly what I would have said. That's how you look. Well, I don't think we've had a busier week ever. News right off the top. Judiciary last night. DCE successful in earning a downgrade of that dangerous throw charge, so he's free to play against Canberra. His record of no suspensions remains intact. He's played 313 NRL games dating back to 2011. It's prompted debate, which I think many people support, that if you are a long-serving player with a clean record, you should get an immediate discount.
Yeah, obviously, depending on the offence, of course. I mean, every case has got to be treated on its merits. I thought Daly Cherry-Evans was extremely... I didn't think he deserved a charge out of this, and I'm certainly glad it's been downgraded to the point where he can play this weekend. Certainly as a long-serving player of the game with a perfect judiciary record, he's not a player that ever transgresses the rules or would ever do anything deliberately. I felt that incident was an accident on behalf of both players. I know he got into an awkward position eventually, but he did land on his back and then rolled towards his neck, which gave him a little bit of pain after that. But I thought it was rather harsh to be charging both players. They are very, very sensitive to this. They're very, very sensitive to these dangerous throws and to any player that even looks like they might have had a chance of landing on their head. And I guess I can understand their concern. But, case by case, I didn't think the tackle deserved a charge. I thought Olakau'atu's unlucky to be missing football, and thankfully Daly Cherry-Evans gets to play on. Now, so far as a clean record does count. If you can go 7 years without offence or in a similar offence, it does not so much give you a discount, but you don't get a loading on it or something like that. They don't give you if he was to attack someone with an axe, you've got to act accordingly, don't you?
I don't think that's in the hands of the judiciary. But it's a suspension is a what's the word I'm looking for here? It acts as a deterrent, but also punishment. So if Daly Cherry-Evans has played his whole career, 13 years, without charge, he's not a dirty player. And if something like that happens, it's an accident. Yeah,
well, but you always got to have the proviso. I mean, if you kick someone in the head out of anger, if he suddenly has a rush of blood, or those things have got to be dealt with on their merits. But this was an unfortunate incident. I think he was extremely unlucky to be even charged, and I'm glad the judiciary overturned it or downgraded it to the point where he doesn't have to miss a game. And with this player, there is no fear of repeat offence, other than the fact he might have another unlucky tackle at some stage. It's a long career without offence. He's obviously not a dirty player, or he's obviously not a player that sails close to the wind. There are plenty of players that do. Daly Cherry-Evans is not one of them, so he gets to play on, which is good. And I think the other boy's unlucky too. I think we suspend players too easily. I think we're too quick to suspend players, but that's the way the world is at the moment, mate.
It'll freshen up for Olakau'atu ahead of an Origin debut.
You think so? I don't think it'll keep him out of the Origin side somehow.
Well, he's got to be there. He's a beast.
Not talking Origin. Move on. I'm not talking Origin selections.
What do you mean?
Well, because every time you do that, someone gets hurt. I'm not mocking.
Well, he's not going to get hurt because he's suspended for the next 2 weeks. Well, unless he slips over in the shower.
You mocked poor old Kalen Ponga.
Yeah, it was all me. Very quickly, we've got so much to talk about. Team of the week? Who were your team of the week from last week?
The team of the week from last week. Cool, crikey.
I'm going to answer your question.
Yeah.
Panthers' defence.
It was brilliant.
I was in awe watching them. And people go, they still scored 20. They had all the ball.
Yeah.
They had 1,000,000 six agains. But if they're playing any other team, the Cowboys, they win.
Oh, yeah, they played better than a lot of teams that did win on the weekend. They were, second half they were very, very good in the second half. Yeah, there were some solid performances on the weekend. Sharks, again, very, very professional. I mean, they just blotted the Raiders out of it and gave them no chance, albeit the Raiders down on troops a little bit.
Feels like a long time ago last week, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I loved the Anzac Day performance of the Rooster. They've got that in them, the Roosters. They scored 60 points. There wasn't 50 points difference between those two sides.
No, it wasn't.
Physically at all. But the Roosters have got the ability to do that, to score tries that no one else can score and score them at a quick rate. And Sam Walker just had one of those 10 out of 10 performances where everything he touched turned to gold. He was ably assisted by a couple of other players. I thought Connor Mason went really good. Connor Watson went really good. And obviously the centre Manu was really, really good as well. Their performance was really solid. Titans got on the board. They won. Their last 15 minutes of defence was extraordinary.
I know.
It was as good as Penrith's.
Why can't they do it all game?
Well, it's 2 weeks in a row now where they haven't conceded a point in the last 15 minutes. But they've conceded 30-odd in the first 65 minutes. I don't get it.
Weirdo.
They can do it when they want to. I mean, Warriors had enough ball to win 10 games in that last 15 minutes. They only had to score one more try to win and got over the line 3 or 4 times, and Titans just kept turning them away. They'll get a lot out of that. They will get a lot out of that performance.
Who are they playing this week? Oh, they're playing Melbourne. They're at home to Melbourne.
Yeah, the Titans will get a lot out of that.
The Warriors on the hurdy-gurdy, as Rabs would say.
They've got a few injuries. There's a few coming back. I see Capewell's coming back this week. They
missed the 5'8", Metcalf.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look, to be honest, they've probably disappointed themselves a little bit in recent times. And a couple of those games they got to the front and still gave up leads. I'm a little mystified compared to how they were last year. I thought that they'd be a real force this year and may well still be, but we'll have to see.
Yes!
No.
Hey.
No.
That's the rule.
No. Dear.
Are you prepared to declare Cronulla a genuine premiership threat?
Yes!
Ooh.
Well, they are. Everyone fit and well and everyone playing to their best. I would say there are better candidates in the competition. I think that Panther and Bronco are still clearly the teams to beat. Behind them, just Storm and Rooster. And Shark is somewhere in that mix, around that top 5. But I think they're better than they've been. They've stumbled at the last hurdle the last couple of years, but I think that experience has served them well. They've got a lot of depth in their squad. And the last couple of weeks where they've just had complete blotouts. I mean, they've blotted their opposition. I think they won 42-6 and 40-0 or something or other, the last 2 games. So they've got that little bit of ruthlessness in them now that they haven't had before, and a little bit more belief. They've always had the ability to score points, but in big games they've struggled to defend them. Now when you start winning games like that, like in previous years they'd win, if they scored 40 they might concede 20. They win 40-20 or 36-24 or 28-18, those sort of scorelines. Now when you start winning by those big margins and giving nothing up to your opposition, that's when you're getting to the point where you can start seriously thinking about premiership success. And I think they're an improved version on the last couple of years. Having said that, their draw, they haven't really played a lot of the top sides. I think their tests are to come, and we'll probably judge them more in another 6 or 8 weeks' time.
Yes.
To see how or what's available.
So I talked during the call on Sunday, I asked Freddie and Joey about that. So they got the local derby this week.
Yeah.
Then they've got a trip to Melbourne. Then they've got the Roosters in Magic Round. Then they've got the Panthers at PointsBet. Yeah. So that is the 3.
Well, it's going to be a really interesting 3 weeks for them. And the best part of it is they're in really good form and they're fit and well coming into it. They've done, they couldn't have had a better preparation to lead into those 3 teams. What is it? Rooster, Storm, Panther.
Away.
Yeah. Roosters
at Suncorp.
Yeah.
Panthers at home.
All right. Well, that's in ascending order of quality right there. So, by the time they get to Panther, if they can get over the top of the Storm, then the Rooster, and then come into the Penrith game, that'll be the game of the season because they'll be ready to pit their skills against the best in the comp.
If they win 2 of those 3, we reinforce your yes. So, yep, they're the real deal.
They might win none of them, but I'm pretty happy with the way they went.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the results. I'm worried about how they do it. I think, if they win one, they'll be very happy with that. They win two, it's a bonus. All three, well, we've got a new premiership favourite. But right at the moment, this is the test that they need right now. They're going to get a good test this Sunday. Don't worry. The Dragons are a big, aggressive side. I know they got beat by 60 last week, but local derby, that's always going to be hard. And this is where these are the ones that Cronulla have got to win, and then they go up against those top sides. I think it's perfect preparation for them. I think Craig Fitzgibbon would look at the draw the way it's been.
Yeah.
Because they haven't played a lot up till now.
He just circled that month.
Yeah, he said, well, this is the month, and it's the month leading into rep football, so you need to win those games.
What do you reckon about how good was Shane Flanagan's deflection?
Is that what it was?
Well, what do you think it was?
You seriously think it was a deflection?
Well, mate, they just had 60 put on him. He can't exactly go in and be bullish, can he? You just give it to the Sharks.
Deflection.
What do you think it was?
Who's saying it's deflection?
Well, what else would it have been? Saying, oh, yeah, they haven't won a comp since I was there and we'll go down and give it to them.
Well, what's that sound like?
He's got the shits.
Sounds like you're giving yourself a rap to me. No, we don't know about deflection.
It's pretty hard to go in huffing and puffing after you've had 60 put on you.
I'm thinking to myself, what the hell? Probably not the time to be bringing that up.
Were you a deflector? Were you a deflector?
Every now and then.
Can you think of a deflection you've... No? Not interested.
I was pretty honest. Yeah.
I love the one I remember as a young journalist being up at Suncorp when you're New South Wales coach and they ask you one question and you walked off with the shits. What was that one? Did you say it's all about Queensland?
It's all about Queensland.
And then that was it. Press conference over.
The importance of the last press conference is to give them a headline.
And you gave it to them.
So I'd go in. I said, "These blokes have got grapple tackles. These blokes, it's all about." And so I didn't have any. I said, "It's all about Queensland. Just write about them."
And you walked away. It was great.
Away.
It was so good.
Which is the headline you want leading into the Origin.
It's
all a sense of theatre.
Before I ask you the question, I'm going to play this audio.
You can lose the ball over the line scoring a try, right? And you get penalised 20 metres and 7 tackles. It cost the Canberra try yesterday. You lose the ball over the line, it costs you 20 metres and 7 tackles. Why? I don't know, because it's stupid. But I can just take a line drive, and if it goes out on the full, doesn't go 10 metres, no consequence, nothing at all. What sort of stupid game is this? Who sits and makes up these rules? Obstructors, and he didn't have his eyes on the ball, and he bumped into him, and he ran behind him. Obstruction. Api Koroisau try. What the hell was that? What the hell was that?
It cost Brisbane the grand final last year. They're not being able to execute dropouts, cost them the grand final.
We are so stupid with our rules. We are so stupid with our rules. Give me that. Give me that. Give me that. Give me that. Tell me. Did I score that or not? Did I score that or not?
Slight bobble, please.
No, bobble.
I love doing
our game is stupid.
Api Koroisau was robbed of a try.
100%. 100%.
That's your best ever.
I'm sitting on the lounge and I'm thinking, what the hell are they taking time here for? I mean, why would you think it's your job to find fault with that put down? What goes through their head that they've got to go through this with a fine-tooth comb and a magnifying glass on every play, on every try that's scored, and try to find a way to disallow it? And what wouldn't even motivate them to think that they've got to find fault with that put down? When you watch it at normal speed a million times, no one was worried about the put down. No one.
Were we not briefed that if you have separation and catch up with the ball at a try? Were we not told that's the new interpretation?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure we were.
I don't do it in that space.
Well, I thought we were told in a briefing before the season, or maybe last season, we were calling on the radio. I was calling it with Darryl and Paul Gallen, and I was aghast.
Well, I would say that a lot of tries that are scored, particularly those wingers that are putting it down in the corner, they're actually letting the ball roll to their hand, right? They're actually taking their grip off, letting the ball roll to their hand to get it down. Sometimes they're planting it down with their wrist. What are you going to go disallow all those?
Yeah.
We've been putting the ball down like that for 100 years. There was nothing wrong with that put down. Nothing. He was simply reaching out to get it to the line and got it there. And, downward pressure, everything he needed to do. And to the naked eye, there is nothing wrong with it, no separation whatsoever. You've got to go back with a magnifying glass to find out where it's...
Yeah.
I found it absolute... Why has our game come to that? And forget about that. The other stuff. Why is it a 7 tackle set from the 20 metre tap? Now, why is every 20 metre tap a 7 tackle set? Why do we penalise 20 metres and 7 tackles because a bloke failed to ground the ball in the in goal, or the ball dribbles over the dead ball line, or I miss a field goal? Where did all that get mixed up in the other stuff? Where
did it come from?
The 7 tackle set came from because I think at one time you might have had Darius Boyd and Billy Slater, who used to run the ball back really strongly, and some coach worked out, right? Instead of kicking it to them, I'll just kick it dead. We'll cop the 20 metres, right, and the 6 tackles, rather than kick it to them and fear of them running it back 50. So, and I think it might have been Jamie Soward and St George. It might have been Bennett at the time that did it. I don't know who.
Does it go that long back?
I don't know how. We went back years and years. And so what they wanted to do, it became a little bit boring because sides just started kicking it dead against the good fullbacks. So they were happy to have a breather, get some oxygen in the lungs, and then it was a slow restart for the 20 metre tap, and you get your 6 tackles from there, which is really negative. And it wasn't going to last that long either. There were other ways to penalise that. But they said, we'll turn that into a 7 tackle set. You get an extra tackle if they do that. Right? And I say, yeah, good idea. So what do the referees do? Every 20 metre tap is a 7 tackle set. Now, I'm quite sure they didn't mean that, but they just didn't think about it at the time, and the referees applied it to the nth degree of the letter of the law. So every 20 metre tap became a 7 tackle set. How ludicrous. How absolutely ludicrous. A 7 tackle set because I miss a field goal.
Yeah.
I bobble the ball in the in goal. Api Koroisau got penalised 7 tackles and 20 metres.
No,
20 metres and 7 tackles.
That's outrageous.
It is outrageous, but no one does anything about it. We all know it's outrageous. Everyone knows the rules are stupid, but no one does anything about it. Who comes up with all this disruptor stuff and escorts and obstructions and the way they apply this stuff? The bunker assuming this role that it has to, every time a point is scored, they've got to go back and apply a new set of rules to what's normally done during the normal set of game. Don't be starting me on this. Look, you've upset me now.
Well, I don't mean to do that.
No, podcast over. I'm finished.
Sorry. I'll put one more to you. You might combust.
Yep.
This dropout stuff.
Told you at the start.
It is a dog's breakfast.
Did I not say it at the start?
What are we doing? Why are we doing this?
Did I not say it from day one? Did I not say it from day one?
What a mess. No one even knows what the rules are.
Did I not say it from day one? Now, why did they do it?
Well, I don't know.
I know why they do it. They won't advertise the reason they do it. They hide from the reason they really did it, right? It's because they didn't want the bloke running back and fearing concussion. Now they're starting to get people talk about kickoffs and getting rid of kickoffs. Leave the game alone. And you can't have a rule that just allows you
carte blanche. If you're going to take a risk with a short dropout,
there is absolutely no pressure on the bloke taking the short line dropout. None whatsoever. He can just kick it. Oh, well, no good. Didn't go 10 metres. Oh, no good. Went out on the full. Who cares?
But the thing, as just an observer of the game and someone who's never played, one of the things I loved was a half that could manipulate possession by kicking to the in goal repeatedly.
There's no repeat set anymore.
But there is no repeat set.
No.
So you trap someone in the in goal, it's a 50-50 whether you're even going to get the ball back.
You're a chance of giving away a penalty if someone escorts or someone touches the ball and offside in front. I mean, it's ridiculous. It is so ludicrous. And I said it at the time, and everyone said, oh, good idea, competition with the ball. Yeah, some person comes up, oh, that'd be a good idea. Yeah, why don't we do that? And it would have come from a coach, or it would have come from someone on social media, or it would have come from a doctor who's trying to avoid collisions. The reasons for making the rules are ridiculous, and the rules they come up with are ridiculous. I want to keep going back to this 7 tackle set rubbish. This 7 tackle set rubbish for balls dribbling over the dead ball line, or losing the ball in the in goal, or missing a field goal. Why is that a penalty? There is no greater penalty in the game than a 20-metre loss of territory and 7 tackles. That's a phenomenal penalty. A phenomenal penalty for nearly scoring a try and just bobbling it in the end goal.
Well, there's no reason they could just say, if that happens, if someone drops the ball over the line in the act of scoring a try, that is not a 7 tackle set. They could easily say that.
It should be a scrum feed to the defending side coming out of trouble. That's the best that they should be able to get out of it.
But there's no reason they couldn't change that.
But they won't. They've got no one that can. Look,
anyway.
Don't start me. Don't start me.
Luke Keary.
They know it's wrong. They know it's wrong.
The dropout one does my head in.
But I can never get anyone to say who is actually responsible for these rules. And most of the rules are changed because some influential coach brings someone of influence down there, or something on social media, or some media commentator gets a burr under his saddle and complains about it, and then they check social media, and a few people agree with it, and that's how they change the rules.
But apart from who's responsible for it, if they just changed it, it wouldn't matter who's responsible for it. Luke Keary, when he retires, one of the game's great little tough men. Yes? No? Yes!
Absolutely. You don't give me too many no-no-nos anymore. Everything's a yes.
Well, you answer whatever you want. I can't preempt your answer. I was giving you a chance to wrap Luke Keary because I know you like him.
Yeah, brilliant. Said it on the footy show the other night, on the 100% footy. The one word that comes to me with Luke is courage. Every time I don't know Luke all that well. I've run into him a few times, obviously, around the footy, and every time you run into him,
lovely bloke.
He's a lovely kid. He's always got a big smile on his face. It's kind of like when he shakes your hand, it's like you've told him a joke. He's just full of joy and life and happiness. But the things that he's overcome, firstly, he's a little bloke, so he's going to get targeted, and it's hard for these little blokes, and it's a tough game, and the blokes they play against are so big and strong, and when one of the big blokes wears down, they just bring on another one, fresh one, and they run at him too. He's had to overcome all that. He's had his concussion issues, his injury issues, but put together a stellar career, absolutely stellar career. And
his career was nearly over with those head knocks.
It's not just the physical, mental courage he's got too. He's got a game courage. His game is, he's got this sense of team and what the team needs right at this point in time, and he delivers it. But he's also got this innate instinct, to make things happen out of nothing, without second thought, without fear of consequence. He's a very brave little man and a brave player, and he's had a wonderful career. And I've got to be honest, I'm so glad that he's going to go out on top. He could have played for another couple of years, but I'm so glad he's going out now while he's still healthy and still in good form and still a chance of winning a premiership. It would be a fitting way for him to end his career. Be a few players in that boat as well, but you wouldn't begrudge him if the Roosters won the comp for him in this last year.
Wayne Bennett will be South Sydney coach next year.
No. I'm only saying that so I get a no in.
What do you actually think?
Oh, my personal opinion?
You've been saying no. I'm sure. Have you changed your mind?
No, my personal opinion is I'd find it hard to believe he would accept that role right now. I don't know.
Well, they want him. They've made no secret.
They've made it public that they want him. I just don't know. I don't know whether he would do that, whether he'd come back to live in Sydney for a start.
Well,
and whether he'd want to pick up the pieces of what's going on there at the moment.
I think he'd love to pick up the pieces.
Do you think so?
This is what Blake Solly, the chief executive of Souths, had to say this morning.
I think the board wanted to give it as much consideration as the subject deserved, really. Dismissing a coach is never easy. We've got a great board who consider every issue very diligently and do their job properly. And as I said, dismissing a coach is never easy, and they want to give themselves enough time, give it appropriate consideration before coming to a unanimous decision.
Did results speak for themselves that you just couldn't keep going down the same path you were going down?
Yes.
All right, that's Blake Solly. Now, Michael Chammas has got the inside scoop about what's evolved with the South Sydney coaching scenario in the Sydney Morning Herald and the 9 papers around the country today. He's revealed that 48 hours prior to Demetriou's arrival at the club yesterday, the coach knew he was a dead man walking. On Sunday morning, as the dust settled on yet another South Sydney loss that left the Bunnies stranded at the bottom of the NRL ladder, Solly called a meeting with the coach. Solly, who Michael says is fighting in some ways to save his own job, told Jason Demetriou he'd lost his support. Solly wanted Demetriou to know that after the 54-20 Anzac Day shellacking, it would likely be his last game. He sent a recommendation to the club's directors to terminate the contract. There were 2 meetings yesterday, and we found out yesterday evening that they had made the decision to terminate Jason Demetriou's contract. Blake Solly has come out, in addition to what you've just heard there this morning, and said that they want to talk to Wayne Bennett. I felt sorry for, and you feel sorry for anyone that loses their job, but for Jason Demetriou to have to leave training yesterday and then walk through the assembled pack of media and ask if he's going to keep his job was tough. It's a tough game. So firstly, Gus, he's out of a gig. Ben Hornby's going to take over. your initial assessment of all of that?
Yeah, well, it's certainly not going to, I look at South Sydney this year, and obviously there was some concerns with the way they fell out of the race last year. I think halfway through the competition they were near the lead, and then they lost a number of games at the back end of the year and things sort of fell away. At the start of this season, just have a look at who they've played. Right? At the start of this season, they played in Las Vegas against the Sea Eagles, who are one of our top teams. Their second week, they played Brisbane at Suncorp Stadium, last year's grand finalists. Their third game, they played the Rooster in Sydney, away from home. They played the Bulldogs, and that was been their only win of the season so far. And then they've played the Warriors, Sharks and Storm. So Manly, Brisbane, Eastern Suburbs, Warriors, Sharks, Storm. They've played 6 of the top teams in the competition. The only team outside of that's at the bottom tier of the competition, the Bulldogs, they beat those. All right, so they've played the 6. They haven't played anyone else. In that time too, they've also had a number of players unavailable. They started the year with Jack Whiten having to serve a suspension, and he was unavailable for those games. Campbell Graham hasn't played at all this year. Jai Arrow missed a number of weeks with his shoulder. Alex Johnson has been out for a number of weeks, and Latrell Mitchell has been out for the last few weeks. Obviously haven't been able to recall Lachlan Ilias, even though they dropped him. He's had a broken leg for a few weeks. So it's not as though they've ever had their full complement of players. They've played 6 of the top sides in the competition, and the only one game where they probably would have started favourites they won. I don't know. I think this is, unless, usually I say that people internally in the club know best, and they probably know stuff that we don't know, and you've got to allow for that. But on the season itself, I can't see grounds for actually terminating the coach's contract right now at this time. I just can't see it.
Well, okay, can I play devil's advocate? I think they've won 5 of their last 18 games, going back to last year.
That's last year.
You talked about the teams they've played this year.
Well, if they weren't happy with last year, why didn't they act in the off-season?
Sure. But you say that they've had a difficult draw, and undoubtedly that's true, but this is a team that came into the year thinking they could win the comp. Like they're entitled to be more competitive.
But they haven't had their full complement of play. Campbell Graham got injured in the off-season, right, and is not going to play until midway through this season. Jack Whiten, who was their big signing, didn't play the first couple of games because of suspension. Jai Arrow, who was their big signing as a forward, hasn't played for a period of time because he had a shoulder injury. Then you get to the point where they finally win a game. Latrell Mitchell gets suspended, all right, and he's not playing for 3 or 4 weeks. Alex Johnson's done his hamstring. I mean, I'm just saying they haven't been at full complement, and they've played the top 6 sides in the competition. All right, it's pretty harsh marking, I think, at this stage. Now, internally, they may have made this decision in their own mind months ago. Who knows? Because there was too much scuttlebutt in the media for a number of weeks early on in the season, even before a ball was kicked, but even after they had a couple of losses. All of a sudden, people in the media
it didn't take long to flare up.
No, it's starting to speculate. So someone internally was leaking out the story that this bloke was dead man walking.
Clearly, it's the section of the board that wants Bennett.
Could well be. I don't know. And I find it strange that you come out and say, well, this is the bloke we want, even though he's on contract with another club at the moment, right? And what happens if they miss him? What happens if they miss Bennett or Bennett says no? Then what do they say to the next applicant? Well, we didn't really want you. We wanted him.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
But it's not unprecedented for clubs to act knowing that the person they want's off contract, is it? And Coach, these things can trigger a domino effect. I mean, I'm thinking, what about over at Parramatta? Like, are they thinking about Bennett?
I don't know.
But this isn't.
Are they thinking of sacking Brad?
Well, I think it's on the. I think it is. I think it's being discussed.
It's discussed in the media. Certainly being discussed in the media. Discuss all sorts of sackings all the time. In fact, one of the big things that starts the season is who's going to be the first coach sacked. It's kind of like media fodder.
Well, sure.
That's what media wants.
Sure, but of course they're talking about it. He's been there 11 years and the team's not
going
anywhere.
But what I'm saying, the talk about Demetriou started way too early for mine, for there not to be someone internally who wanted that to happen. So
a couple of things that were mentioned, a couple of the areas that they weren't happy with. This is in the reports. A lack of development of younger players. Now, Marmazelis, the young hooker, was supposed to be part of a 2-pronged dummy half attack for this year. Mm-hmm. He wasn't picked. Mm. He hasn't picked Tallis Duncan regularly. Mm. He hasn't picked Kepi, who they've dragged over, and there's dissatisfaction that there's not enough younger players coming through that team, and there's not as great a focus on development.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing a lack of development of young players?
They're saying that.
That's what the board. That's one of the areas that the board haven't been happy with Demetriou.
So the board wants to pick the team now.
Well, the board want to see him have greater faith in the younger brigade of players from what is being reported.
And they think the results would have been different.
I don't know. Well, I'm asking whether you see
your team. Yeah, your team is sort of picked when you allocate your salary cap. That's when your team is picked. And as I've said, a lot of the good ones, several of the good ones haven't been available to him. Like development, that's a whole different subject. And how, the head coach's job is to win football games with the NRL team. That's his job.
Because, let's be serious, they haven't got any better. Souths aren't getting better.
Mate, they've come through 6 years where they've finished top 4 every year. It was a stellar period in the club's history. I know they didn't win a premiership. They did go to a grand final. Clubs would kill. There are a lot of clubs around who would kill for their record over the last decade. They would kill for their record. Yeah, they would love to have their record over the last decade.
They were saying the club thought it could win the comp this year.
Well, whoever thought that, I think, was living with the Pixies.
All right.
What I'm saying, development of the future of the club is not just solely the responsibility of the head coach. There's got to be people in the organisation that are doing that. And I'm sure Souths do. But when they're having that period and they're finishing top 4 every year, someone's got to have their eyes on the prize 3 and 5 years down the track and what it's going to look like when some of these fellas retire and what's going to happen from there. And they've sacked their coach, and honestly, there aren't many options available outside of that. They've announced they're going to go and chase Bennett. What if Bennett says no?
Do you reckon
don't you think that's destabilising to the Dolphin right now?
Do you reckon they care about the Dolphin? I don't think they care about the Dolphin.
Well, no, they only care about themselves.
Yeah. Michael Maguire's been thrown around.
Michael Maguire's just taken on the Origin side. I interviewed a bloke the other day I was very impressed with. Very impressed. Coach.
Well, why would you say that if you're not going to tell us who it is? And clearly, why would you say that if you're not going to tell us who it is and clearly you aren't?
Well, I can if I want to.
Yeah, of course you can, but you're not going to, are you?
Assistant coach at the Newcastle Knights, Brian McDermott.
Oh, there you are.
He was brilliant. I actually enjoyed
You interviewed him? For what?
I didn't interview him. He reached out to me wanting to talk footy.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so I drove up to Newcastle and had a coffee with him. Oh. Very, very impressive. The reason I took the time to do it is because Andrew Johns said he's made a big difference at Newcastle. He's been really helpful for them. He came there last year when they had that big run and got to the finals. And interesting man, really interesting man. He fought in the British Army, fought in the Middle East, and he was a soldier. He went on, he had a professional boxing career.
No, right.
He was a player. He did his time apprenticeship in the English Super League coaching. And I believe he coached Leeds. He might have been one of Leeds' best ever coaches. Terrific record with them. Anyway, he's come out to Australia just because he's always wanted to be around the NRL, and he's come out and they speak very highly of him at the Newcastle Knights. And he was sort of asking me the question: do you think an English Super League coach will ever break into coaching in the NRL? And I think we discussed this topic a few weeks ago.
Last week.
Yeah, and he might have heard it because that's why he rang me, just to see what I thought or how he thought he would go about that, or how would he get noticed for something like that. And the last one to do it was Malcolm Reilly. We've had a few that have come out as assistant coaches and done really good jobs. I see that...
Steve McNamara was out here, wasn't he?
Well, I think Steve McNamara was touted as maybe a potential South option if Bennett didn't take the job.
Yes, he has been.
Yeah, I mean, not that I'm telling South how to suck eggs.
Well, would you endorse Brian McDermott?
On the conversation I had with him, I was very impressed with him. Very impressed with him. It's one meeting and one coffee. I mean, you'd have to go back and talk a lot more. But his thoughts on football. He's 54 years of age. He's done a lot. He's achieved a lot. He's been in the military. He's been a professional boxer. He's been an individual sports achiever. He's had success coaching in the UK Super League. I think he was one of Leeds' most successful coaches. I mean, there's a bloke who could be available to any of the clubs that might be looking for a new coach. I was really impressed with him at first. At first talk, I think we sat for an hour and a half and had a coffee, and I really enjoyed his company and enjoyed the conversation. Even the way he spoke about football, what he thought about football, and what he thought about coaching in football. And
Well, mate, he's coached 442 games.
Yeah.
He played 250 for Bradford.
Yep.
He coached Leeds 265 times, Harlequins 115, Toronto and the Featherstone Road, 442 games.
Yeah. Fought in the Royal British Army. Saw action in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Had some great stories about all of that sort of thing. It was very impressive.
We should get him on as a guest.
He's had quite a few professional fighter.
Joey's told me, and this is a long time ago, but I think there was a bit of drama in the change room about something early doors at Newcastle. I think he called one of them on and said, well, there's drama, let's sort it out.
I don't know about that.
I think there was something, but that was his way of sort of, drawing the line.
I think you'd be scared he might say that.
Okay.
I found him very impressive, and I probably shouldn't have spoken about it, but I did.
Well, I'm glad
so
you
there
did.
You go.
All right.
But he looked like a bloke that would certainly drive culture, and his ideas on rugby league I really enjoyed. His ideas on playing the game I really enjoyed, and his demeanour, like he was, and obviously one for very strict for discipline and fitness and all that sort of thing as well. He had a lot of good ideas on the game. The English game's different. He was sort of talking to me about the difference in the English code and what's over here, and he's been very interested since he's been here to watch the way we train and the way we play, and the emphasis on our game is different. But he would love an opportunity, just an interview, I guess, to talk about coaching,
that's very
head
good.
coaching in the NRL. Newcastle Knights want to keep him. They want to keep him as an assistant coach up there. Anyway, he wasn't applying for a job. He just wanted to talk football. That's what he wanted to do, which I get a lot of those sort of requests over the years.
All right.
So I drove up there and took a little half day off work and drove up there and sat down and had a chat to him, and I'm better for the experience. I learned a lot.
It's good of you to drive to Newcastle.
Well, it's 6 phone calls or a little bit of music and a little bit of contemplation. That's my holiday, a 2-hour drive.
Listen to our podcast on repeat. All right. What do you expect from South for the rest of the year? Now, Ben Hornby has the job. What would you be looking for? But they can't make the final.
Well, if there are any players there that have been using the coaching as an excuse, that excuse is now gone. And if they've played all those top 6 sides, then I'd imagine there's a part of the draw coming into where they'd be starting favourite in a number of games. They have got Latrell Mitchell to come back, who's now reportedly, apparently he didn't say it, but he's reportedly saying he might forego Origin selection just to be with South Sydney and help them. They will get Campbell Graham back at some stage. I think, South Sydney have got to be looking to win football games. That's your job in the NRL, is to win football games or to show improvement. Teams at the bottom can be coming off a very low base. Sometimes it's just keeping the scores respectable is a great improvement. And I don't think South Sydney are at that stage yet. I think South Sydney have a team that can win games, and it'll be interesting to see when they start to play the teams in the bottom half of the draw where they stand up against those sides. So, your Tigers, your Dragons, your Bulldogs, your Titans, your Dolphins, those sides they're all at the bottom trying to get out of the bottom part of the competition. South Sydney haven't played those fellas yet.
Yeah.
Only played one was the Bulldogs, and they beat them.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if Hornby makes any initial changes to the team. I see Kalal Matangi's moved up to play prop. He was an Origin back rower last year, and Kempy's not in the team.
But that comes down to recruitment, and that comes down to selection, and sometimes when you're losing, you try things just for the sake of trying them. They dropped Lachlan Ilias, and
they've given him permission to leave.
Well, they have now because reports are they've signed the boy from England, Lewis Dodd.
Have you spoken to Lachlan Ilias?
No. I've never met Lachlan Ilias.
By the way, I asked David Middleton about this caretaker coach thing. It's a bit of a myth.
What's that?
That they win straight away.
Win straight away. Who are they playing?
Penrith. Tomorrow night.
They've given him a 2-day lead-in, a 1-day lead-in. When did they sack him? Last night.
Yesterday.
So they've given him a 1-day lead-in
48 hours
to play the Pen. That was the part that got me, because the natives were beating 2 weeks ago when they lost, and then they had a fortnight's bye, and they got belted again by the Sharks, but everyone said it was an improved performance, and that was enough to keep his job. And I said, you blokes.
It wasn't improved performance at all.
I said, this is ridiculous. So then they take 2 weeks off to play Melbourne in Melbourne, where they've never won. They haven't won for yonks. Right?
They were 9-17 in Melbourne.
Yeah, so they go down there and they get beaten. And then all of a sudden, that's last Thursday night, and don't make a decision until 8 p.m. last night.
After 2 meetings in one day.
After 2 meetings in one day. Give me a break. To give the team, the players and the coach 2 days lead into playing Panthers.
Your prep's done now, isn't it? Like
Yeah,
you
it's
got
over.
one more run.
They might have a little captain's run today to say, well, who's coaching us? Okay.
Who's the coach?
Who's coaching us?
Well, he can't change the team if he wants
Is
to.
Latrell back this week?
No.
Not back this week.
Yes. 16 out of 43 caretakers have won their first match. This is David Middleton Gold, by the way, from 1988. So 37%. 17.
Which is still a high percentage, given that they probably weren't winning at 33% before they went in.
True.
A lot of teams, we've seen a lot of upsets. A lot of teams that have been belted, that's the last straw. Coach has got to go, or the coach quits, or the coach can't stand this anymore. It's not always the club sacking them. Sometimes the coach just quits. And then the next week they win. It happens.
Yeah,
it does happen.
It's happened 16 times, actually.
Are you tipping them to do it this week?
Absolutely not. But if you bear with me, 17 have won second up.
Yep.
That's 16 first up, 17 second up, 26 third up.
Yep.
Now let me have a look how they play third up. Magic Round, North Queensland.
All right. Well,
all right.
Give me their draw. Give me their draw going forward.
Penrith, Dragon, Cowboys,
bottom tier.
Para,
bottom
might
tier.
be a battle for the spoon.
Yeah.
Titans,
then
Brisbane.
Right.
So and Manly, then a bye. So it's not a bad little.
They got two
segment.
buys in that time.
Well, no, then Para, then Dolphins. You know what? You're right.
Parramatta, then
got a bad
Dolphins,
run,
then Tigers, then Raiders, and then they get back to Sharks, Storm, then Tigers again, then Knights, then Panther again.
Then the Roosters to finish.
They finish with Panthers and Roosters.
It's not a bad little run, actually.
Well, it's a hell of a lot better than the run they've had. They've played the six of the top sides.
Ben Hornby might be he might be a genius.
The only
all
game
that.
they started favourite in their first 8 weeks was against the Bulldogs, which they won. Narrowly, but they won.
All right.
I think it's harsh, but there has obviously been some internal issue there because the Dogs were barking way too early in the process. This was as much media-driven as anything, or someone was motivating the media to do so.
All right.
It's been quite painful to watch.
Well, what's Gus's take on the Jason Demetriou situation? There's something that I've been wanting to ask you, and I think this week's the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to a few people about this. And this is not just based around Penrith. After Finau Fuiaki's gone to the Dolphins, for instance, there's examples going back years and years and years. Why should the salary cap not reward development? The Panthers, now, this is local Penrith players, developed players through the Penrith system that have left the club since 2020. Crichton, Burton, Leniu, Kickow, who was in North Queensland, but you brought him down and he was part of the juniors, wasn't he?
He hadn't played first grade.
Right. May, Staines, Hopgood. Does Naden count?
Yeah, Naden came to us at 17 years of age.
Tyrone May, Jack Hetherington, James Fisher-Harris, Jerome Luai and Sunia Taruva.
Yeah, it's more than that.
But they're the headline ones.
Yeah. Dalawatani Zalesniak, Regan Campbell-Gillard, Bryce Cartwright. Yeah, there's a lot of them. Wade Egan.
There are. Yeah, there you go. I said that since 2020, but you're right.
Yeah.
That goes back forever.
Yeah.
So, if there was a discount across the board in the salary cap for clubs that develop players, there'd be a benefit not just to the club, but there'd be a benefit to the game because there'd be more players. Clubs would focus on development. More players would be in the game. The comp would be stronger, and there'd be more teams and a more competitive overall landscape. You could go to 20 teams and it would be stronger. Why is there not a dispensation? I mean, I even think back to Matthew Johns leaving Newcastle. That's 30 years ago. Is this talked about?
Well, it's obviously talked about, particularly by those clubs who do spend time and energy and money developing talent and who don't have the wherewithal or corporate support to go out and buy elite talent that's already at representative class. But it's usually shot down by clubs who prefer to recruit rather than develop because out of self-interest. Now, there is a discount in salary cap for long-serving players, not developed players, longer-serving players, all right? But the discount is rather minor and it's capped at a certain amount of money each year, which means a team that doesn't spend anything on development can have just as much discount as a team like Penrith who were completely developed anything up to 3 or 4 years ago. The models, the salary cap model punishes success. It does not reward development, nor does it give an incentive for development. And it's been very much a discussion that I've had with the NRL for 20 years, not just in my time at the Panthers, but even long before that. And I found it very... And the issue being for me was that not all clubs took a lot of time, care or money in development, putting development pathways in place and looking to build on their own. A lot of them recruited talent or they recruited young talent from other clubs. So it's not just the first grade talent that they buy. Panthers have also lost a lot of kids that are in their junior rep program at the moment who managers will say, their pathway's blocked. All right, so they'll get them to some other club where they can play first grade quicker.
You see a lot of that. Even young Sanders from Parramatta's gone to Canberra.
There's no compensation for that. So, I remember saying to who was in charge, Todd Greenberg, and I was even back in David Gallup's time, even back before that, David Smith's time. I'd say, why would I keep telling the Penrith board to keep spending all this money on development if other clubs can just come in and grab them at 19, 20 years of age and take them away, and we can't defend ourselves against that, and that there is no compensation to Penrith? Then they have this ridiculous thing that came in, which was the getting rid of the national youth competition, all right, and installing this thing, what they call development contracts, which is an absolute farce and does not help the game in any way, shape or form. All right, I could talk for hours about this.
Well, I know you can.
I could talk for hours about this subject. And I said, why under this system would we allow Panthers to keep spending the amount of money on the development that they're doing, trying to build their club for themselves? And I think at one stage we got to a top 30 where 24 or 25 of the top 30 debuted with the club. That's how extensive the development was. And he said, we would hope Penrith will keep doing that anyway. I said, why would they? And he said, the game has to pay for it. I said, so what are you saying? He said, well, the game should pay Penrith Academy to keep going. I said, how much? And I said, what, $2 million a year, $3 million a year for the Panthers Academy to produce talent for all other teams? Is that what you're saying? And that was a discussion they were having at the time. Never did I ever think they were ever going to do that. Never did I ever think they'd get to the point where they'd actually turn around and do that, and they didn't. But what's the incentive? And you get a team like the Roosters. Now, the Roosters are a development club too, but they've got to go out and buy their elite junior talent, right? Because they've got no junior league. They have an association with the Central Coast, but they get a lot of kids from New Zealand, a lot of kids from Queensland, a lot of kids from New South Wales country. That's the journey we're on with the Bulldogs. It's the same as that. We don't have big junior leagues. Every club should be doing something. Some don't do much at all.
But development doesn't mean you pull someone from the under sixes, does it? Like, you can develop from junior reps. So I'm not interrupting, but you made the point there where 24 of the 30 were at Penrith, for instance, and were local. Should that not be the aim of every club?
They weren't all locals. They were
developed
talent. Yeah.
But should the game not make it a priority that every club has that?
I think local junior league boundaries are historical. I don't think they should have any bearing at all.
But should the game not incentivise every club to develop a top 30 that has 20 players that you have developed in it?
Yeah.
Because that provides greater resources to the game.
Yeah, but these development contracts that they come up with this model that you could have a top 30 and then you just buy your best six. You just pick your best six and you pay them a ridiculous amount of money. It used to be $60,000, now it's $80,000 to pay a kid who should be earning 10 and still doing a trade and still going to school or doing what he's doing. And I said that model just doesn't fit. Those kids that you're now paying $60,000 and $80,000 to used to be on $5,000 and $10,000 contracts, learning their trade and coming through the system. And their response was, we've got to stop paying for development. We've got to stop paying so much money for all these kids. Just pick the blue chippers. And I said, who are the blue chippers? He said, the ones that are definitely going to play first grade. I said, they're not all Greg Inglis, mate.
No, that's not the... Yeah.
I pointed out to the training fields. I said, there's 150 kids out there. You tell me which one's the blue chipper, because I don't know which one it is. 99% of us are average. 99% of us who played first grade are average. It's just how long you persevere and how well you can get through and survive. It's as simple as that. The top 5% are so elite. I should say 95, not 99%. But the top 5% are so elite, all right? The rest of us are all surviving. We're all just trying to stay in the game for as long as we can and train hard and be a part of our dream and play first grade and play first grade football. And there may be some that come through at 16, 17 years of age. You'll get a Darren Lockyer or a Brad Fittler. They're obvious. Anyone can find them, right?
people saying you found Brad Fittler. Well, it's like saying I discovered the Blue Mountains. Someone would have stumbled upon it eventually, right? So, but it's the others that are just come through and they go through a process, and some debut at 18 and some debut at 26 and everything in between, and all the trials and tribulations they're going to go through in their life, and the education, the welfare, the training, the setbacks, the injuries, the treatments, and everything that you do, trying to cobble together a team under a salary cap system that's drives me mad, and a development system now that's just wrong for the game. It is wrong for the game. And what they thought they were doing was spreading the talent out by saying, well, you can keep your 6 best. Well, I want to know how you know who your 6 best are.
Yeah.
And I want to know how many of those have actually gone on to be...
Shouldn't the system be, where you talked about, look at the training fields, there's 150 kids out there. Shouldn't the system be not to pick the 6 best? Shouldn't it be to cast the net and grab them all?
All of them. Absolutely.
The game survives on that, doesn't it?
They call it, what was the term they use? Warehousing. So they're trying to get rid of warehousing, that you'd have too many players in your club, but you can't warehouse. If you've got a player there that should be playing NRL and he's not playing NRL, then the manager and the player is knocking on your door saying, I need to go and play somewhere else, and you let them go. If they can get an NRL job somewhere else, you let them go. You're not warehousing. But there's not enough reward for the money that the development clubs spend on development.
What's it cost to develop a player?
Oh, that's a great question.
Well, that was one of my other questions.
It's not the cost of developing. I used to call it a pyramid. And I used to draw pyramids. And I'd say, how many players have I got to start with, right, at the base to actually isolate and get one NRL player, a Bryce Cartwright or a Regan Campbell-Gillard or whatever? How many did I start with to get that player? I remember at a time I went up to see the Broncos because Broncos had called Queensland to themselves, and they were investing heavily in game development and junior development. But they had a lot of kids on scholarship, a lot of kids on contract. And I said to them, what do you see as a successful development? They said, a bloke who comes through the system and plays 40 NRL games. I went, wow, that's a high mark, to come through the system and play 40 first-grade games to say it's a successful development. Well, that's what we see as a success. I said, well, so how many kids would do that? 2 out of every 10. I said, wow, 2 out of every 10 are going to play, in your system, are going to play 40 first-grade games. I found that incredible. And then he said, oh, no, but we started with 100 to get to that 10, and we started with 1,000 to get to that 100, right? It was just numbers, and eventually they come through, and because they had a market and a monopoly on the market, and they were able to, around that time in Queensland, they were the only show in town. They had a huge advantage over everybody else, so... what
happens to the kids they let go?
Well, some just shuffle off to other teams. They play Queensland Cup. I don't know.
But how many of them could you... Could have.
Yeah, well, it's... Yeah.
Anyway, so... Gus, this is Gus's thing, and this is something I've been thinking about bringing up. So this has not been set up because I see players. There's a lot of players moving around the joint, and
the unrestricted movement of players between NRL clubs is a problem. I've said that for ages because that gives all power to the player and the player manager in negotiations, and there are some that use that. And because of the lack of talent in the competition or the lack of numbers of talent in certainly key positions like your front rowers and your halves and those sorts of things, it gives them massive bargaining power, which supply and demand.
Yeah.
A lot of demand for a short supply. It's going to drive prices through the roof. Once those prices are established, other players take their mark off those prices. All right, it's an inflationary effect on the game, a massive inflationary effect on the game.
So Lachlan Ilias, and he's just an example. He's going to sign $1 million contract with the club, isn't he? He's a halfback.
No. Lachlan Ilias is not. He's not commanding.
But what the supply and demand thing? Like how many clubs are going to want a halfback that's played 40 NRL games?
Yeah, I'd imagine there'll be a few. Yeah, but he's not.
But he's going to get a lot. He's going to get big money.
He's not in the $1 million status. Well, people will speculate. Yeah. People will speculate. Like we've got some young halfbacks in the system at the Bulldogs that we're trying to tie up longer term, in the hope and the belief that they can develop into NRL players. But they'll be 24 and 25 before we really know the answer as to how long they're going to be in the game. They show great potential at the moment, and we're going to persevere with it, and that's what we're going to do. You don't often get lucky to get a Keary and a Luai suddenly come through your system at the same time. But if you're doing the right thing with your recruitment and your development and all that, these sort of young players emerge. And there are some players that are exposed way too early. There are kids that have got too much money too early, exposed to first grade too early and given up on too early.
And we've talked about this repeatedly, certain positions take longer to develop the player.
Which is kind of why I've thought about this. So
You'll spend a lot of money on a player and he never really gets to the mark. He never gets to where you are.
But if he's a locally developed player and you get relief in the salary cap, you'd be inclined to try and stick with him.
Yeah.
So what?
But it comes down to salary caps and drafts and how our country's not set up for it. It come up to the getting rid of the NYC competition, the National Youth Competition. Sides, clubs that weren't compelled to have development pathways of their own or spend a minimal amount that became recruitment clubs rather than development clubs. All of this should have been handled by the NRL a long, long time ago. And long before the current commission's time. You can't blame the commission for it. But we haven't done much to correct it either. And I don't think we've done much to understand it. I think the people in clubs that are responsible for all this, the recruitment, the development, the dealing with player managers, the dealing with parents, understanding junior leagues, understand the backgrounds that these kids come from, understanding education and welfare, they're rarely the ones that are brought to the table to discuss what development contracts and salary capping and roster management should be like. I think the clubs should be given an amount of money and let them spend it at their own way. What the RLPA and the league has done is they've dictated what they should earn and how they should earn it. And that's put a lot of pressure on clubs and it's put pressure on development. It's not helping player development.
No. So just to conclude this, and this might be too simplistic, and if it is, tell me, but if I said to you, under the new salary cap, you get a 25% discount on the salary of a developed player, would that change the landscape dramatically?
Well, I think it should go down to years spent and games played with your club. With years spent and games played. The size of the discount.
Okay.
But there should be dispensation at the lower level so that you're not losing kids that you contract and develop through your Pathways program. That you're not losing them before they become. And what will happen is you might have your NRL side, sort of half established, and then you go out and buy a player that's going to help you win games now because that's what the fans want, that's what the sponsors want, that's what the media expects. Otherwise, your head coach is going to lose his job and the board's going to lose their job. So everyone buys to win in the current. And all of a sudden, you get a couple of really good young players come along, and everyone else sees it, and they're able to come in and offer them $300,000 and $400,000 as teenagers when you can't. You haven't got the money for that. So now what do? I've got to tip some older blokes out at the top, which everyone screams about, to bring these kids in who aren't ready and overpay them just to keep them in the competition. Right? That's the part that I don't like. That's the difficult part of development. So when you're looking at your roster and what you manage, me bringing in high-priced top players that might make everyone feel better today, right, could come back to bite us in 2 years' time when this 18-year-old kid is now 20 and everyone's seen that he's got NRL potential and someone from down the road just comes in and offers him $300,000 or $400,000 and I'm trying to keep him for a development contract or a New South Wales Cup contract, which is where his development really is at the moment. So what do? We throw too much money at him. So what's he do? He doesn't stop doing his trade. He stops doing his education because he's going to be a full-time footballer. They get in the system too early. There's a whole discussion around this that's never really been had.
It's fascinating.
And all the development is done by the clubs. The league have got there's no one at the league with any real understanding of this. New South Wales Rugby League just runs competitions. They just run competitions, and the NRL run the NRL competition. All right?
It's fascinating.
It is.
We could do a couple of podcasts.
It won't be fixed in my lifetime.
Well, I don't know why it would. But to get more players in the game, this is something they have to look at. Can you be very brief with two AskGus questions? Yeah. Particularly Mel's. Will Manly win a premiership before DCE retires?
Chance. They're a chance this year.
Will the Panthers go to market for, that's Mel. Mark asks, will the Panthers go to market for a new prop or hold onto the funds when a 5/8 becomes available?
No, I think they've got plenty of kids coming through in both positions. It'll be interesting to see, if they buy just one front rower or two mid-range front rowers or a couple of journeymen just to fill. They have got some younger players coming through. It'll be interesting to see how they play that. But, remembering a lot of their salary cap is already taken up. They've just extended Mitch Kenny. They've got Moses Leota. They've got Liam Martin. Liam Martin might push up into the front row and they look for a back rower. They've just done Scott Sorensen. They've got Asaya Yeo, who's on long-term contract, Nathan Cleary, Dylan Edwards. They've just signed the two centres, Tungor and Taylor May. They've got Brian Todd. They've got a lot of high-priced players in that club at the moment. But the beauty of it is they've got a pathways and an assembly line that's pushing through talent. You know, they won't always be winning comps. They can't always win comps. That's got to come to an end at some stage. Look at the players they've lost over the last few years.
We just talked about it.
I know. But they'll have a system where hopefully they don't drop back to where some of the struggling clubs are. What the idea was that they would never be out of top 8 contention. It wasn't just about winning premierships. It was to cut down the difference between their best and their worst season. All right, because if you looked at Penrith's history up until 2013, 2014, they'd won 2 premierships, but the rest of the time in the game they'd bounced around the bottom 4.
Yeah,
there was a couple of spikes in 91 and 2003, but the rest of the time they'd bounced around the bottom 4, and everything from crowds, membership, marketing, merchandise, sponsorship, all those things that rely upon success at the time were so minimal. And I said that will all improve when you are consistently a top 8 side.
let's have a look at round 9. Rabbitohs, Panthers. I'm not even going to go into the teams.
Yeah. It's hardly the best preparation for Rabbit, is it? You'd have to think Panther will get the money there.
Okay. Let me go through the rest of the games here, as we normally do, and give them due respect. That's live and free from 7:30 tomorrow night from Accor Stadium as well. Early game Friday, Manly with DCE on deck against the Raiders. Elliot Whitehead comes back into that team. I saw a few. We've got a lot of Raiders fans that listen to us. I saw a few of them tweet last night as soon as DC got off. Damn.
Yeah, they weren't happy about that.
No. That was hard watching the Raiders last week, actually.
Yeah, Sharks were good. Sharks were good.
So it goes to, I'm assuming you're tipping Manly.
Yes. So
Friday night, baby. 8 o'clock kickoff, Suncorp. Sold out. Broncos, Roosters. Absolute classic. Ezra Mam in. Selwyn Cobbo in. Daniel Tupou comes back. Victor Rowley's on the extended bench.
Yeah, I'm going to tip Rooster.
Rooster?
They beat them in Las Vegas. I know it was the first game of the season and maybe Bronco had a little grand final hangover. I don't know. But I don't know. There's just something about the Rooster that troubles them, to my eye.
Okay.
I think the Rooster might be able to. That would be my upset.
You reckon Sammy Walker can play like that again? Oh.
Well, if they watch him too much, Luke Keary can certainly do it to them.
Yeah.
Brandon Smith can certainly do it to them. Tedesco can, Joey Manu can do it to them. Suaalii can do it to them. They've got plenty of talent there.
Saturday, 3 o'clock, Bulldogs, morals of the week. 5:30 Saturday. You're right with that. Titans versus Storm. Khan-Pereira and Shopper out, so I think they're injury enforced. So Sami and Smith-Shields comes in. Photowaker's out too. Oh, gee. There's 3 big losses. And Melbourne, steady as she goes.
He was in rare form the other day, Munster, wasn't he? I mean, some of the things he did. We all know he's a brilliant player. You know, I was talking to Matt Burton when he first came to the Bulldogs. We were talking to him and he was sort of just starting to play 5'8" again. He'd had a few years off because he wasn't playing 5'8" with the Panthers where he won a premiership. But we were talking about the playmakers in the game. And I showed him that Cameron Munster makes more mistakes than any player in the game.
Does he really?
Yeah, he had more errors in his game than any player in the game. But that's because he does more and he tries more and he speculates more. And when he has his good day, it's brilliant. And when he has his bad day, it's just bloody good. You know, like he's like that. And some of the touches he had the other day, and I still don't think he's 100% fit.
He's admitted he's not.
Yeah, he's an exceptional. I think you need a player like that. You know, in the structure of the game these days, where a lot of the game is so predictable and a lot of the game is just a repetition of things over and over and over and over again, and it's just wear and a tear and an attrition. Every now and then, the brilliance of one man makes the difference between success and failure, particularly at the elite level. So, and that person is usually a little bit of a risk taker. He's a little bit instinctive. So
Reece Walsh,
a Munster, you know, a Reece Walsh, a Cherry-Evans, a Trebojevic, those types of players make the difference. A Latrell Mitchell, they can make the difference in big games because of their complete confidence and self-belief and absolute absence of fear of consequence, of fear of making a mistake, you know, where a lot of players live their whole career in the fear of mistake, fear of failure. They don't. And it's those players that sometimes makes the even great sides better. Munster is certainly king of the pops when it comes to that.
Yeah.
Reece Walsh is still learning his craft. Reece Walsh makes a lot of mistakes.
A lot of mistakes. But gee whiz, if he came on the market, there wouldn't be a club that wouldn't try to fit him into their side somehow. So I'm saying Storm to beat Titan. What about Cherry-Evans' pass where he threaded it between those two blokes
Incredible.
to the wing?
Happened
what
right
a ball.
Happened right in front of Andrew Johns and I. And Andrew Johns is the greatest halfback that ever lived. I just looked straight at him and he went, wow. And it was because he threw the ball through a gap that had yet to appear.
He's a freak. He's playing so well.
He had one little half dummy which drew Maker Sivo in. He could see that, and he could see Maker Sivo making a mistake. He actually throws it at Maker Sivo as he's jumping out of the picture.
Yeah, no.
It was phenomenal.
So good.
And not enough has been made of the fact that Jason Saab caught it, even though it hit him on the chest. But to actually think that ball was going to come through that narrow opening. Honestly, the old pass ball competition, she would have been a 10 out of 10.
He'd be unbeatable.
You'd have got the elephant's roar for that one.
He'd be unbeatable.
It was just beautiful. Beautiful. He thread the needle. It was absolutely wonderful.
See the origin. I mean, it's great every year, but Keary, after what he did in the grand final against Cherry-Evans, the ageing Wiley, what a battle.
It's those players that they make the difference. Even look at Parramatta.
Touch wood.
What?
Shit.
What?
I just said I've already got you the origin. The battle of the sevens in the origin. They both might get hurt now. Give me the wood.
Look at Mitchell Moses with Parramatta. Look what's happened to Parramatta since Mitchell Moses has been injured. Now Clint Gutherson's injured. This game can be so fragile at times. I say to people, you take the top three players out of every NRL team and tell me what you got left. You tell me what you got left. You take the top three players out of every team and the rest of them aren't as worth as much as what they were with those three players in. They're the ones that make the other players. I'm telling you, 95% of us are average. We're just in there doing our best trying to survive. It's the elite ones that make the game.
That's not just in footy, Gus.
But we need the other 95%.
That's in life.
In life? It probably is. We're all just trying to survive.
Just battling away. Cowboys, Dolphins, up in Townsville, 7:30 Saturday night. Hillam Lukey's back in. Jack Granville's dropped it. Seriously, you can't leave Jack Granville out. He's been brushed.
Haven't they got a statue to him? No, it's JT. Cowboy wins that.
Righto. Now, this is an interesting one. 2:00 Sunday up in Newcastle. Geez, that David Armstrong went good for the Knights, didn't he?
Yeah, they've been tipping him for a while. Who tipped me him? Alex McKinnon.
Yeah, right.
Tipped me him a couple of years ago. I drove up to Newcastle to have a coffee with Alex McKinnon. He wanted to talk about recruitment. He was doing a recruitment job with the Knights at the time. I don't think he's there anymore. He told me about this young man coming through the system. As a player of the future.
Kurt Capel comes back for the Warriors. Bunny Afoa comes in. They need a win, but it's not going to be easy up there in Newcastle on the back of a victory.
No, it's not. It's not. Knights were good better last week. Hard one. I'm going to go home team coming off the win, Warrior not playing with confidence.
Wow. Knights to beat Warrior.
Oh, wait on. There's one of the Saifidis out. They had one getting around with a limp there the other day.
They've both been named.
Have they?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Knight to beat Warrior.
And then the triangle. Sharks Dragons.
You never know your luck.
After Shane Flanagan wrapped himself.
You never know your luck in a big city. Shane's got the answer down there. He knows how to beat the Shark.
They're nearly $5 outside as Dragons.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous price. They were look. Forget the score last week. I've seen teams belted by the Roosters and haven't been that bad, really. Like, Roosters can just have a day like that where they score a lot. How many did they score off kicks?
Yeah, most of them. Well,
what was it, 10 tries?
5 or 6 or something.
10 tries, and he never missed a conversion. 5 or 6 of them were off kicks. Having said that, Shark are in a rare vein of form at the moment at home at the Bermuda Triangle, but that's our big game on Sunday. I'm going to be there calling it.
No, yeah?
I'm just waiting for the triangle to do its stuff.
Hope you turn up next week. And
the triangle will do its stuff.
The other one this weekend is Parramatta versus the Bye.
Yeah, they're sweet. The Bye's got a few injuries.
Righto.
The Bye hasn't had a game for a while. Don't worry about the Eel.
The bias seems to give away 2 points every week.
The Eel will be back. Don't worry about that. So I'm going Panther, Sea Eagle, Rooster to beat Bronco. I'm going Storm to beat Titan, Cowboy to beat Dolphin. I think Newcastle can get the upset and Shark to beat Dragon. So I think Newcastle and Rooster are my 2 upsets of the weekend.
Very good. You've been on fire today. Thank you very much. That's 6 tackles. See you next week.
Did any of it make sense?
Most of it.
Most of it.
Most of it.
What didn't make sense?
Anything I said. That's 6 tackles for this week. We look forward to your company next week. Enjoy the footy over the weekend.
This year, NRL on 9 is your one-stop shop for all footy.
That's right, Freddie. Not about the highlights. Action. 7 days a week.
Billy and Gus podcast. Get that on your drive on the way home. Immortal Behaviour. Grab a seat on the couch for that. And, of course, my favourite, Freddie in the 8.
The best footy brains, the biggest games.
Don't trust the algorithm. Subscribe to NRL on 9 and get all your entertainment there.